Hi everyone, so I know I just did a video recently on updates with the rabbits and a tour of the way the rabbits room's set up, but I've already got another update to do, so I thought I would do that today and let you know how things have changed. So as you saw on the previous video, all the rabbits are separate at the moment. We did have Snowflake and Coco bonded as they were twins, and when I got them, they were bonded already, obviously. But the rest of the bunnies, which was Little BL, who you can see on the screen there, and Lucy in the pen next to him, and Lotus in the pen next to her, they were not bonded. The two girls we adopted from the RSPCA, and they weren't bonded. And then I hadn't planned to adopt another bunny, but Little BL came along and needed a home, and I fell in love with him and couldn't resist adopting him as well, so we took him in. And I did have plans to try and bond them, and did not realise how tricky it is to bond girls for a start because they're very territorial. In the rabbit world, the girls are the matriarchs, so they choose their mates, dig their burrows, they're very much the bosses, and they're very territorial. And bonding two girls and a boy can be a tricky combination because there can be competition between the girls for the boy. But I did try my best, as you can see from these photos. I did try my best over quite a long time to get them to bond, but unfortunately they just kept fighting. And so I resigned myself to the fact that, okay, they will be in separate pens. And I'd try and give them as much room as I possibly could in each pen. But recently, BL and Lucy have been getting a little bit more tolerant of each other, and they had actually kept escaping into each other's pens without any fights happening, which I noticed, but I thought, oh well, you know, they're just obviously accepting each other more. I never thought they'd actually bond. And then yesterday morning I woke up and I found this, and I thought, that's different. It was a really nice surprise. And Lucy had lifted up one of the pen panels on the pen, snuck under into BL's pen, and yeah, they were just sat together and he was grooming her. So usually when they're grooming like this, it's a pretty good sign that they have bonded, which very much surprised me. But I didn't want to get my hopes up too soon, because I thought, well, they have sort of gotten close to each other and tolerated each other before, although no one had given in to being the one to groom the other rabbit. They just sort of sat there with their noses together, wanting each other to groom them. But yeah, so I was really quite surprised and really pleased to see it. And I just left them as they were. I left the pens, I opened the pens, the panel between the two pens so they could go in and out. Just left things as they were and observed them over the course of the day, just to see if there was any fights, and to see how they went. And over the course of the day they seemed fine. There was no fights. Every time they passed each other, BL would give Lucy little kisses on the face, which was really sweet. And I thought, well, I'll just leave them. I was a bit worried about nighttime, because that's generally when a lot of fights can happen. They're more active, the rabbits, you know, at night often here. But my husband works from home at nights, so he was able to keep a bit of a ear out for any scuffles, and none happened. And so it seems like they might have bonded, which is wonderful. I'm so happy. I'll leave the pens as they are for another day, probably, just with the divider still there, just as things are, so that I don't upset them with any changes. I might even leave them longer than that. It's not really an issue having the divider there, and just so that they're comfortable with and familiar with the surrounds, and see how it goes. I have had to put this cardboard along here between Lotus's pen, as you can see, because now that the dynamics have changed between BL and Lucy and Lotus have started to fight between the bars, which often happens when the dynamics change in a group of rabbits. You know, everyone has to re-establish who their friends are and where they stand in the group, but I really don't want any injuries to happen, and I don't want BL and Lucy to get on edge from tension between the girls and start fighting between each other as well, because often they can have redirected aggression if any stress happens, even if it's not between those two bunnies. Those two bunnies can then turn on each other if it's too stressful because it's redirected aggression. So I put the cardboard up there just for the interim while everyone just gets used to the new situation. I feel a bit sorry for poor little Lotus because I really do think she'd like a friend, and she's still on her own. I know Coco's on her own as well, but she's really old and she spends a lot of her time sleeping. She's very grumpy and she really doesn't like... She just wants to sleep. She just wants to be left alone to sleep. She likes pats from me, and I go in very regularly throughout the day and give her attention and pats, but then again, she only tolerates very short amount of pats from me as well. She really just wants to sleep and be left to do her own thing, so I don't feel so bad about her, being on her own. I think that's probably what she needs at this end of her life. I think the last thing she needs is another rabbit to bond with. I just don't think that's right for her. But for Lotus, she's only young, and I do think it would be nice for her to have a special bunny friend. So I will wait longer. Hopefully, maybe she might end up bonding with Lucy and Biel as well. I would really love that for her. I'd love to have them as a trio. I think if they just gave it a chance, they'd really, really enjoy it, like these guys are now. They just would not bond with each other, and just for being so territorial and silly and aggressive. And now that they've bonded, Lucy is just absolutely loving the kisses that she gets every day from Biel. But yeah, I don't know, 2 girls and a boy is a pretty tricky combination, and sometimes rabbits just won't bond, despite best intentions. So if she just doesn't bond, I will look at adopting a male rabbit friend for her, and I would take her on a bunny date, really, to the shelter that we adopt them from, and make sure that they get along before I bring a new bunny home. Make sure they're well paired. But anyway, back to Lucy and Biel. So here they are. They're having their first meal last night together, their first greens for tea. And yeah, I'm just really, really pleased that they seem to have bonded. It's such a nice surprise. And it's going to be so nice when if they stay friends like this, so that I can open up their pens. I just would love them to have as much room as possible. Rabbits need to run, they need to jump, they need to have exercise. So that's why my dream was to give these three younger ones, Lucy, Lotus and Biel, as much possible room as I could. And I'd love to just be able to open up a lot of that room, minus Coco's cage. That was my dream, to give them the most of the room. I could put tunnels in, I could do all sorts of fun things in the space for them. So if these two stay bonded, I'll be at least able to do that for them, and I might even be able to give Lotus a little bit more room by moving the pen barrier to give her a bit of a bigger pen, seeing these guys will now have a much larger space between them. So it's getting there, the dream is getting there, which is so nice. And yeah, I see this as a big win. Even though it's not the 3 of them bonded, this is a big win. It's a great start. So I'm really, really happy, and I really hope they stay friends. I mean, I've always got that little bit of doubt still, because I know they can turn on each other. It's early days, so if something happens and they have a really big fight, then we could go back to square one again. But at the meantime, so far so good. And I've kept everything, as I said, in their pen as it is. The 2 litter boxes, the pen's pretty much exactly as they were, just so that there's not too much change for them, so they feel confident and comfortable in their surrounds. I haven't even vacuumed for the last couple of days, which is why this pen's a bit messy, because I just didn't want to... Biel's a little bit flighty with the vacuum. Lucy loves it, but Biel's a little bit flighty with it, so I didn't want to upset them. And yeah, I've just kept it quiet and usual and comfortable, and hopefully they'll just settle in really well. It's just so sweet to see them giving each other kisses. Lucy absolutely loves it because she just loves attention. She just cannot get enough pats and cuddles and attention. So to have another bunny there to be able to cuddle into her and groom her is just her heaven. So it's so lovely. It's really, really what I wanted for them, was to have each other and to have that special bond. So I'm so, so happy for them. And yeah, I'll let you know how things go, and hopefully next time I do an update they'll still be together and it'll be still going as well as it is now. Okay, I'll see you next time. Bye.